All right. Good evening, everybody out there on YouTube. This is Cathexis once again with Quantum Eraser. We're doing our seventh episode. Tonight, we're going to be covering a little bit of information about redshift and nebular hypothesis. These are components of the Big Bang cosmology that even you'll find amongst people who promote Big Bang to be very problematic. It's almost like a kind of an open secret with their cosmology. But if you really look at the consequences of what John's about to speak about tonight, you're going to see that there is some really big inconsistencies that mean that have big consequences. So we'll get into that in a moment. Just quickly, how you doing tonight, John?
Just fine, sir. Thank you.
Excellent, excellent. I really appreciate you coming in for all of these presentations. It's I've been learning a ton, and I know that we've gotten a really great response from everybody. Heck, I've got 50 unread messages on my YouTube. I need to go through and answer some questions. But we'll go ahead and get into this. The first part of John's presentation is going to be on redshift, and well, anomalous redshift for the most part. But in order to give a good idea of what exactly redshift is, let me just give you what Wikipedia and another article says about it if you're unaware. So, in physics, redshift happens when light or other electromagnetic radiation from an object is increased in wavelength or shifted to the red end of the spectrum. In general, whether or not the radiation is within the visible spectrum, redder means at an increase in wavelength, equivalent to a lower frequency and a lower photon energy, in accordance with, respectively, the wave and quantum theories of light. Now, some redshifts are an example of the Doppler effect, familiar in the change of apparent pitches of sirens and frequencies of the sound waves emitted by speeding vehicles. A redshift occurs whenever a light source moves away from an observer. A special instance of this is the cosmological redshift, which is due to the expansion of the universe, quote unquote, and sufficiently distant light sources, generally more than a few million light years away, quote unquote, they show redshift corresponding to the rate of increase and their distance from Earth. Finally, gravitational redshift is a relativistic effect observed in electromagnetic radiation moving out of gravitational fields, but we're not going to talk about that. I'll just go ahead and cut that short right there. So the idea is that things moving away from us are going to demonstrate, are going to fall into the spectrum of red. Things that are moving towards us are going to fall more towards blue. And this is apparently why we see these colors out in the sky. Now, Hubble had come up with these ideas back in 1929. He first proposed this, and when he was let me just read this. Edwin Hubble first proposed this law in 1929 based on a study of the light received from a distant galaxy. He observed that the characteristic colors or special lines spectral lines emitted by the stars in the galaxies do not have exactly the same wavelengths observed in the laboratory. Rather, they are systematically shifted to longer wavelengths towards the end of the red spectrum. So this is an old idea that has been corrected on several occasions, even though they call it a constant. But we won't get into that. What we're going to do now is talk about some anomalous redshift, and John has this already, several good explanations here in his presentation. So with that explained, without further ado, I'll go ahead and pass this over to John, and we'll get right into it.
All right, sir. Well, listen, I'd just like to preface it by saying that during the past couple presentations, I've been breaking one of my refrigerator rules, and that is that you should never attempt to falsify arguments from ignorance fallacies. And the Big Bang is an argument from ignorance fallacy. It's textbook. But since these subjects are brought up in support, all these subjects we've been talking about for the past couple of days are arguments in support of the Big Bang. So because they're brought up, I need to go ahead and take them to the woodshed. So I'm breaking one of my refrigerator rules, but it's okay for this genre or the education genre.
Yeah, I think it's okay sometimes.
Okay, redshift. If you get into this subject, you're bound to run into this guy's name. His name's Halton Arp, and they used to call him Chip. That was his nickname. And he was back in the day, back in the 60s at Caltech. And he used to get a whole bunch of telescope time. And he authored this, the Atlas of Peculiar Galaxies in 1966. And this is still a pretty popular book. And but he got into some trouble. And what he found was in some of these galaxies that the redshift data wasn't lining up, and his bosses, as he started submitting papers on this, he started getting some big blowback from the big journals, and his bosses started to put a lot of pressure on him. Eventually, he got more or less expelled. If you ever seen that movie, you'll know exactly what I mean. And he was known by a lot of astronomers. A lot of things I read about him, they called him the modern Galileo. And the reason why is, the biggest reason why is this, and this is from Kaufman from the Science Digest in 1981. And it called him the most feared astronomer on Earth. And the reason why is, if ARP is correct about redshifts not being distance indicators, if his observations are confirmed, he will have single-handedly shaken all modern astronomy to its very foundations. If he is right, one of the pillars of modern astronomy and cosmology will come crashing down in a turmoil unparalleled since Copernicus dared to suggest that the sun, not the Earth, was at the center of the solar system. So that's the reason why. I mean, it takes one of their major assumptions and just clobbers it. So, well, let's take a look at a couple of them. That's all we need. In fact, all we need is one. But I got three of them. Let's take a look at this one. This is NGC 7603 and the companion galaxy with two QSOs. Those QSOs are quasi-stellar objects in the arm. And here's the picture of it. Sorry it's so blurry. I tried to get it in so it was big enough. I had to try to find a happy go-between between being big enough and being able to see it. But as you can see, you got the main galaxy right here, which is NGC 7603. And then you have another companion galaxy here. And then the QSOs are in this arm. You have one right here and one right here. It looks like there's another one coming out right here, but we won't be talking about that one. You can clearly see this. This photo's fame is due to Fred Hoyle selecting it to illustrate his 1973 Russell Lecture before the American Astronomical Society. He referred to its connection with the higher redshift companion as prototypical observations that required an advance in physics beyond currently accepted theories. That should be speculations. We already talked about that. For the first time in the history of the prestigious Russell Lectures, the Astrophysical Journal didn't publish the address. I wonder why. So as you can see from this small photo right here, you can see the same picture that I had above, a little bit more detailed. With 7603, they called this companion galaxy 7603b, and then the two QSOs in the arm here. So in 2002, Lopez, Cordero, and Gutierrez filed this with the Astronomy and Astrophysics Journal. We have clearly shown that two of the compact emission line objects in the filament have redshifts very much different than those of NGC 7603 and its companion galaxy. Thus, we have presented a well-known system with anomalous redshifts, NGC 7603, to be an apparently much more anomalous than was previously thought. there are 4 objects. Actually, there's 5. We'll get to that here in a minute. There are 4 objects with very different redshifts, apparently connected by a filament associated with a lower redshift galaxy. This system is at present the most spectacular case that we know among the candidates for anomalous redshifts. So here's a little bit better picture. And as you can see, here's the big problem. You have this galaxy right here with an arm that's coming out to another companion galaxy with 2 QSOs in the arm. What they're saying is these are all in the same neighborhood visually. However, if you look at the redshifts between the parent galaxy and the companion galaxy, they're way off. And especially with the 2 QSOs in the arm. I mean, these are all connected. I mean, a 10-year-old can look at this and say these are all connected. It's easy. We're going to get a little bit more detailed right here. So, as you can see here, in this photo here, it's the same one as the one above. However, it's this one that I wanted to focus on a little bit, because not only was the parent galaxy and the companion galaxy, their redshifts confirmed, it had the quasi-stellar objects here and here, objects 3 and 2. But the important thing, they redshifted the arm also. That's a big one. So as you can see, here's the problem. See, NGC 7603's redshift factors out to 500 million light years away. Object 3, the one real close to the parent, is 5.4 billion light years. Object 2, right here, the smaller green one, is 3.6 billion light years. This object right here, over here, is 950 million light years. And the arm, its redshift, is almost exactly the same as the parent galaxy at 500 million years, or light years. See the problem? This is a train wreck. This, all I need is this one. It puts an end to this nonsense. And all the values confirmed by NED, that's the NASA Electric Galactic Database. Oh, P.S. from the author above, that Martin Lopez Cordero, he said in a video interview, cosmology is not a science. So, tell us something we don't know. We already went over that how many times now? So, the next one, this is a good one. This caused quite a stir back in the day. This is NGC 4319 and its companion, the Markarian 205. So, like I said, it caused quite a stir. Even unsolicited government-supported institutional press releases exclaiming there was no connection with the 2 galaxies, complete with doctored photos. You guys like this? Who does that? We're going to get that out in a minute.
Oh, yeah.
So here's the picture of the parent galaxy in Markarian right here. A couple more pictures of it. I hope these are coming through okay. They're even a little bit blurred on my screen. But here's the one that really separates this guy. It's the isophote view. It's a magnified isophote view. And this was taken in 2002, or in 2002, sorry. It reveals there's a distension of the shape of Markarian 205 inner isophotes back toward NGC 4319. What these isophotes are showing is lines of similar brightness. So there's nothing you could do about it. This is clearly connected. There's nothing you could say about it. There's also a series of secondary masses within Markarian 205 on a line connecting 4319 and the center of Markarian 205. So the parent galaxy 4319, this guy, has a redshift at 107 million light years away. The problem? This guy that's connected with the luminous bridge right here, this is going to become very important here in a minute, is 1.2 billion light years away. So this can't be. This can't be. It's just like the previous galaxies and their companions along with the QSOs. It just can't be. You can't have them in the same neighborhood with different distances like this. It's a train wreck. So from a video interview with Margaret Burbidge, she's an astrophysicist. She was director of the Royal Greenwich Observatory. One of the best and earliest of the really controversial examples was a Seyfert galaxy known as NGC 4319, the one we're talking about now, which Chip Arp discovered that has a protrusion coming out in the south direction from one of its spiral arms and ending up on another galaxy known as Markarian. People have tried to explain it away in all kinds of ways. She started laughing and tried to take false pictures to show that it's not there, laughing. Well, guess who this is? Who takes false pictures, guys?
I know a couple institutions, one namely NASA.
Exactly. Here is the photo she's talking about. See this photo right here? It's not focused at all. And as you can see, this bridge, I mean, I'd have to look real close here. It doesn't look like there's any connection here. And this is what she was talking about.
And they even put out a press report stating that specifically, see guys, there's no connection, there's no luminous bridge.
Right.
Our government agency, who there is no referee for. Where's the quality control for NASA? It's
no,
self.
There is no referee, there's no quality control. It's science by press releases.
And the academics have to accept it on high, and yet they don't. Now we have this group of people, as you're explaining, who have questioned it, and they've been released from their jobs. They've been, cast out. They're modern day heretics.
But they couldn't mess with the big guy. She was a big guy.
Mm-hmm.
So they couldn't mess with her.
Yeah.
And like I said, like she said, people have tried to explain it away in all kind of ways, and she started laughing and tried to take false pictures to show that it's not there. She kept on laughing.
Mm-hmm.
But she says in conclusion, but I've seen the good pictures. The first really good pictures were taken by Jack Salentic. Wow. Let's see what Jack Salentic has to say. There was a famous paper that claimed to show that there was no connection between NGC 4319 and the quasar Markarian 205. So at that time, I had the opportunity to work at JPL. Yeah, that's one of your favorite institutions right there, Cathexis.
Mm-hmm.
Using the new image processing facilities that had been developed for the Voyager team or the Voyager program. In fact, it took 1 hour's effort to show there was some kind of luminous feature between those two objects. There's no question, and it cannot be dismissed in the ways that it was dismissed. So he said no connection. He starts laughing between the two objects. So I looked at their picture, then I downloaded it, and it took me 5 minutes to show that it's still there. And he's continuing to laugh. But I was really surprised that they felt it necessary to issue a press release saying it's not there. It's not real. When it's the same thing we saw 20 years ago. And what he's talking about is this luminous bridge right here. This luminous bridge. In the isophote view. This bridge right here. And this bridge right here. So this is a real gaggle right here. They really stepped in it. They really stepped in this one. But like I said, I really didn't need this. NGC 4603, the first one I talked about, was the death knell.
Yeah, but I think 4319, this one that we just went over, the fact that they would, and I just have to reiterate, the fact that NASA would lie. I mean, we all know, if you're listening to this, we all know NASA's lying about a lot of things. But these poor academics are sitting there going, wait, why are you guys lying about this? It doesn't make any sense. And the only reason it makes sense is if you are propping up dogma.
Exactly.
And that's what this is. And there are plenty of people. I've actually been shocked to find. John gave me a documentary to watch recently concerning this, and there is a good amount of great cosmologists and astronomers who are pushing back against modern Big Bang cosmology. It's just they're being removed from their positions. The telescope time is being removed from them. They're being subjugated. They're not being published. And that to me is the biggest problem. You know, when I talk about the white coats, when I talk about this authority complex and the institutions of science, people don't think that they could be infiltrated with dogma or greed or influence. And I think that we need to, as a people in the West, human beings need to wake up to this, because we are very close to, we actually already are there. We're almost to this scientific dictatorship where these authority complexes are so built in. Oh, it's the Big Bang because they told us it was the Big Bang. Cosmology dictates your axioms, which dictates your philosophy, which dictates your behavior. And we need to get back to more common sense. So that's why I'm showing these things here. Now that's with the redshift, the anomalous redshift. There are new. How many occasions are there of this?
Oh, there's hundreds of them now.
There are. Yeah, that's what I thought. So, and they just put it in a category called anomalous redshift.
Yeah,
It's
this is pretty anomalous right here.
yeah.
107 to 1.2. That's all right. I even got a bigger one. The next one's just going to be a belly laugher.
Nice, nice. So we want to move on to the nebular hypothesis, or do you have another
No.
one?
I got one more.
Oh, okay, great. Go ahead.
Yeah. This one's real quick. It's NGC 7319 and it's QSO. Like I said, it's even blurry on mine, so I can just imagine the way it's coming over YouTube. However, you can go in and punch this in. It's NGC 7319 and it's QSO. It'll pull right up. So here's a little bit better picture of it. It has the V-shaped jet coming out of the nucleus of the parent galaxy, which was 7319, and the quasar is right here. The problem? The parent galaxy is 360 million light years away. Guess what the quasar is right beside it? 35 billion.
Jeez.
35 billion.
You know, what are the dogmatists? What do they reconcile? How do they reconcile this? The ones who were pushing this dogma, they just throw it in the bin of anomaly.
You see, I put this presentation together back like 8 years ago. Parts of the presentation, and I posted it on various forums. No one touched these things. No one touched. They didn't touch them.
Yeah.
What can you say to this?
Yeah.
The only thing that you could say is these, the quasi-stellar objects and the companion galaxies are way back there. This is just a coincidence right here that these are in the arm, and it's just a visual thing, and these are really distant back here. That's the only thing that could say, but this doesn't withstand, 10-year-old scrutiny.
Yeah.
This picture this is over right here. It's over. So
yeah,
they don't say anything. I haven't gotten any coherent reactions from this. None.
Yeah, it's interesting to see the responses to this. I mean, now this is our 7th episode. I've only seen a couple people been able to step up and try to contest some of our previous topics.
But most of those are just on the outskirts. Just most of them are not even dealing with the main subject.
Oh, of course, yeah, we see that. But well, let's go ahead and move into this next part of it, the nebular hypothesis.
Let me finish up with this.
Oh, sorry, go on.
Just to let everyone know the conclusion here, and I'm sure you can see it. In conclusion, redshift as a distance indicator is bunk. Has everyone got that? So we can go back up here to what said that if the observations are confirmed, because the data is already in, it's already got. So this is all true. It's already come crashing down. These people are just whistling past the graveyard.
Yeah.
It's over.
Yeah.
It's a pillar of astronomy.
Well,
So,
scientific revolutions, they begin with the minority, and it takes a long time for them to, enact. When was ARP? I mean, that was back in the 90s, wasn't it? That he found this stuff?
Well, that went on. His demise started in the early 70s. He's recently passed away.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah, so he went through many years of. He even had other astronomers have documented that their bosses had told them not for them to even talk to ARP anymore.
Yeah.
And those scientists were saying some of them were new. They had just graduated, postdocs and things. And they said, well, that's kind of strange for somebody to tell me not to talk to somebody. I thought we were in the business of truth.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, apparently not. So there was a bunch of them. Yeah.
No, I love that quote, though, that I heard earlier tonight when I was watching that documentary by that Jack Salentic. He says that cosmology is where philosophy and religion and science meets.
Yeah.
And, this is a cosmologist, modern cosmologist with a lot of esteem from the University of Alabama. And they recognize this, just as you showed the quote, cosmology is not science.
Right.
There are scientific elements to it, but for the most part, it is mainly philosophy and presuppositions, and so I think the public would be better off to know that. That's why my favorite quote from George Ellis is that we are choosing our models on philosophical ground, and I think it'd be best if we told the public that this is the way it is. Nobody seems to know this.
Well, like I said, when I first started out with the science discussion, we talked about astrophysics and astronomy and cosmology is not science. We already discussed that. We already went over the reasons why. These people, this is just icing on the cake. They already know it. I mean, the only thing scientific about it is they're observing something. Well, heck, my 10-year-old son could go observe something.
Yeah.
I mean, what's the difference between a scientific observation and an observation? What is it? Yeah. Goggles? I
mean, some piece of equipment that they bought at a science store, something.
Exactly.
Oh man, but yeah, this is fantastic. I mean, it really is enough in itself in order to, bust apart the theory, and we find that most of these are castles made of glass. Most of these ideas are so easy to take down. You can't have a coherent, cogent theory like Big Bang cosmology and have such a thing as this redshift issue.
Well, listen. The nebular hypothesis makes the redshift look like state-of-the-art technology.
So yeah, let's get into that then. Let's get into that.
Tear-jerking belly laugher right here. I can't wait.
Well, let's get into that then. Just quickly, I'll give the Wikipedia explanation of the nebular hypothesis. It says, the nebular hypothesis is the most widely accepted model in the field of cosmogony to explain the formation and evolution of the solar system. It suggests that the solar system formed from nebulous material. I love the word nebulous, too. If you think about it, like the real common usage of that word means confusing and mysterious, right?
Right.
Anyways, shout out to my friend Ian. But anyway, it suggests that the solar system formed from nebulous material. The theory was developed by Immanuel Kant and published in his Allgemeine Naturgeschichte und Theorie des Himmels.
Here it is right here, man.
Now, mind you, I do want to make clear, though, Immanuel Kant was a philosopher. He was not. He may have participated with some astronomy and whatnot, but he's more widely known for his philosophical premises. Um, so let me just, yeah, there you have the name right there. So Universal Natural History and the Theory of the Heavens, published in 1755. Originally applied to the solar system, the process of planetary system formation is now thought to be at work throughout the universe. The widely accepted modern variant of the nebular hypothesis is the solar nebular disk model, or the solar nebular model. It offered explanations for a variety of properties of the solar system, including in nearly circular and coplanar orbits of the planets and their motion in the same direction as the sun's rotation. Some elements from the nebular hypothesis are echoed in modern theories of planetary formation, but most elements have been superseded. And I'm not going to go any further. They have all the breakdowns of it. This is where we hear like protoplanetary disks and accretion disks, and it like it says, it's been superseded by these other ideas. But the fact is, this is Big Bang cosmology. The nebular hypothesis is at the core of it and the root of it. So let's go ahead and see what you have to say about it, John. I'd like to hear this.
Yeah, this hasn't been superseded, brother.
Well,
this is still taught at university.
Sorry, no, I didn't mean superseded in the sense that it's been left behind. I think what Wikipedia was saying here is that it there's been more added to it, and then in the next couple paragraphs they explain all the things added to it.
Well, you have to add to it. Those are called rescue or ad hoc hypotheses. See, if you put lipstick, and a calibrated tutu on a pig, underneath it, it's still a pig.
Yes, sir.
Right?
Yes, sir.
So yeah, so let's get in with this. This is a belly laugh. So from Kant, yeah, I like the way you pronounce this. I didn't see that title before. I was saying, is that the same thing?
Yeah, that was the German. I didn't realize.
Yeah, right. All right. So from Immanuel Kant in 1755. So some 4 billion years ago. Yeah, that's a good one. I guess he never heard of quantum mechanics. I'll excuse him right now. I'm not going to excuse him for not knowing what the scientific method is, because you can't adjudicate time or for anything with the scientific method.
And like I said, Kant was a philosopher. Never ever did he claim himself to be anything but that. He may have written on those topics, but he was not considered a scientist. He's not considered. He was a philosopher.
To try to adjudicate time with the scientific method is non sequitur fallacy on nuclear steroids. But anyway, I digress. Some 4 billion years ago, the sun had ejected a tail, or a filament, of material that cooled and collected and thus formed the planets. That's Immanuel Kant. So what they don't tell you is the originator of this mess met with Edmund Halley of Halley's Comet fame at Cambridge. His name is right here. Emanuel Swedenborg. He was the originator of this mess. He proffered this nonsense to Edmund Halley 21 years before Edmund Halley passed it off to Kant and Laplace. Guess where Emanuel Swedenborg got the idea from? By talking with spirits from Jupiter, Mars, Venus, and the Moon. And I am not joking. Look it up. So Kant picked up the idea from Halley, and Laplace stamped it without doing the math. It appears Kant and Laplace were buddies. If Laplace would have done the math, we would have never heard this nonsense. Let me tell you why. The nebular hypothesis aficionados. Let me introduce you to a concept. It's called a law. It's the law of conservation of angular momentum. Angular momentum remains constant unless acted on by an external torque. Like a skater spinning faster and faster when their arms are pulled in close to their body. In the formation of our sun from a nebula in space, the same effect would have occurred as the gases allegedly contracted into the center to form the sun. And that's a yeah, right, because they never heard of the second law of thermodynamics. Again, this is a repeating refrain.
And you'll get into that next week, just for the audience to let them know, for sure.
So yes, yeah, we're going to talk about the sun next week, a little bit more in depth. So this would have caused the sun to spin very rapidly, but our sun spins very slowly, while the planets move very rapidly around the sun. In fact, although the sun has over 99.8% of the mass of the solar system, of our solar system, it has less than 2% of the angular momentum. That's a problem. This pattern is directly opposite to the pattern expected by the Jean-Dixon style prediction. It's not a scientific prediction, by the Nebular hypothesis. Again, and the outer planets are larger than the inner ones. Again, directly opposite of the Nostradamus style prediction from the Nebular hypothesis. From Nei are the birth of Uranus and Neptune in astronomy in 2000. Astronomers who modeled the formation of the solar system have kept a dirty little secret. Uranus and Neptune don't exist, or at least computer simulations have never explained how planets as big as the two gas giants could form so far from the sun. Bodies orbited so slowly in the outer parts of the solar system that the slow process of gravitational accretion, would need more time than the age of the solar system to form bodies with 14.5 and 17.1 times the mass of the Earth. Yeah, this is a train wreck.
Yeah.
Let's get another train wreck. The Nebular hypothesis, Edgar Cayce style prediction now, that as the nebula spiraled inwards, all the resulting planets and comets would rotate and orbit in the same direction, prograde. But Venus and Uranus rotate in the opposite direction, called retrograde. See, we got contradictions. We have opposites. We have Lucy has some more explaining to do. So the retrograde orbits and satellites and moons, Triton, Ananke, Carmi, Pasiphae or Pasiphae, Sinope or Sinope, whatever that is for Juniper, Phoebe from Saturn. There is no plausible naturalistic solar origin of the planets. Moreover, there's no plausible naturalistic origin of the sun or the universe. We already went over that in the past couple of presentations. This is really good. Check this one out. This is by Eva Novotny, The Introduction to Atmospheres and Interiors. So check this out. My comments are in brackets. I had to put them in there. I couldn't resist. The process by which an interstellar cloud is concentrated until it is held together gravitationally to become a protostar is not known. In quantitative work, it has simply been assumed that the number of atoms per cubic centimeter has somehow increased about 1,000-fold over that in a dense nebula. The two principal factors inhibiting the formation of a protostar are that the gas has a tendency to disperse. Yeah, that's called the second law of thermodynamics. Before the density becomes high enough for self-gravitation. Wow, which gravity? Einsteinian or Newtonian, love? I'd like to know that. To be effective, and that any initial angular momentum would cause excessively rapid rotation as the material contracts. Some mechanism that directly violates the second law of thermodynamics must therefore be provided, that's not the worst of it, for gathering the material into a sufficiently small volume that self-gravitation, that doesn't exist, by the way, Eva, may therefore be provided, or may therefore become effective. And this is the big one. Listen to this. And the angular momentum must in some way be removed. I mean, are you kidding me? You got to be kidding me. This is like telling me that you got ribeyes But now you got to remove the cow.
Yeah,
It's ridiculous.
there's flaws everywhere you turn, and for this to be still generally accepted is just beyond me. It reeks of dogma.
Yeah, yeah. From Fred Hoyle, there is no reasonable astronomical scenario in which mineral grains in space gas clouds can condense. Period. Why? I'm going to tell you why. Because it's a second law of thermodynamics violation, Fred, and you already know that. So Adam Loeb in 1998 wanted to get in on the action. He's from the Harvard Center for Astrophysics. He says the truth is that we don't understand star formation at a fundamental level. Yeah, you do, Abraham. From the truth, yeah, the truth is, Abraham, it's called willful ignorance. Because it directly violates the laws of quantum mechanics and the second law of thermodynamics. So you've chosen to whistle past the graveyard and float an implied argument to the future fallacy to keep your mind-numbing just so story fairy tales alive. I can't believe these people are saying this. I can't believe this. I mean, this is basic stuff. This is just simple second law. That's it. Here we go again. We got Paul Davies. We've been talking a lot about what he had to say in the past presentation. So, the greatest puzzle is where all the order in the universe came from originally. How did the cosmos get wound up if the second law of thermodynamics predicts asymmetric unwinding toward disorder? That's right, Paul. It's a real puzzle. I mean, is hydrogen bonding, sipping tea, and jogging in the rain unsolvable riddles? No, they're not unsolvable. We already know all this stuff. You just said it. It's right here. That's your huckleberry, Paul. Go ahead and go face it. Oh, I forgot this one. So, I think it's in 2013. This was identified. It's the largest structure that's ever been witnessed in our universe, allegedly.
Huh.
It's called the Hercules Corona Borealis Great Wall. Now, it's 10 billion light years across, so obviously I couldn't put a picture of it in here because my screen's only 1 billion light years across, so I couldn't put it in here. Go ahead and pull this, punch this in, go ahead and pull it up and check it out.
Oh, man.
But the problem is, if it's 10 billion, now, according to their story, you got to go with their story now because it's their story. So, if it's 10 billion light years across, that means we're just seeing it 3.8 billion years from when it codified. The problem is you can't get this size of a structure, 9.8 billion to 10 billion light years across, essentially, in this time frame. It's impossible. It's a joke. So they got proof after proof after proof, staring them right in the face. But nope, Big Bang. Gotta be Big Bang. We gotta have Big Bang. And of course, it's not. There's no God there. Matter created itself. That means it pre-existed before it existed, and then poofed itself into existence, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, it's it's something else. I mean, I keep reiterating, but it just seems as if there's just this massive dogma that is permeating the institutions, and I mean, we see it on so many levels, but with cosmology and cosmogony, it is it's such a hard thing to prove or not prove. I mean, we're just men looking at stars, men and women looking at lights in the sky. And
that's all.
Manufactured a bunch of just so stories.
Exactly.
Based off of and what they're doing also is they're just calculating its rotation. Like what we see in the sky is almost a clock face that we're looking at. So it's not that they're doing. I mean, their techniques have become more advanced at looking at it with different types of telescopes, better lensing, stuff like that. But they're still coming up with this just so story in order to continue their materialist paradigm.
Cathexis. let me go ahead and just say this over again. I know it drives people nuts. All right. This is tantamount, like I said, to going out to my garage. I observed 3 large scorch marks, burns on my garage wall. Right? Now I can have all the technologically savvy instruments to measure, you know, to do a chemical analysis of the scorch marks. I can post measurements till the cows come home. But guess what? My story is, for the cause of those, is fire-breathing dragons. Invisible fire-breathing dragons exist. They're doing the same thing.
Yeah,
It's the same thing.
it
I
is.
just want people to be able to see this and be able to dispute. You know what? Let me just put it to you this way. All the arguments I hear from people are all logical fallacies. I would say 99.999% of the arguments boil down to simple logical fallacies. Do yourself a favor. If you want to go out there and test your arguments and see other people's arguments, go and learn the logical fallacies. Now, there's a whole ton of them.
Yeah.
But the 3 big ones are equivocation fallacy, begging the question or circular reasoning, and affirming the consequent. Now, there's a bunch of other ones they use. There's a lot of nuances, but those 3 are the big ones. If you know those 3, you can defeat 99.999% of everyone's arguments. They're just based on logical fallacies. It's as simple as that. It's my experience.
Yeah, I agree. It's like I said, it's just some guys looking at lights in the sky and coming
Yep,
up with all
and
these
making
just
up a
so
story.
stories.
Yep.
Yeah. And what it's doing, though, is it's reaffirming their religion of materialism. Um,
Yep.
I say it a lot, but it's so true and it needs to be repeated. Cosmology dictates your axioms, which dictates your philosophy, which dictates your behavior, which dictates the way you think about things. And if these institutions like NASA, which we just showed that they were lying about one thing, we know they're lying about a lot, if not everything. By doing that, they're making the academic. But you know how many people in academia trust NASA? They think that they are this amazing institution and organization. They have utmost faith in that institution, and this is why all of these problems have come up. They're manufacturing the quote unquote proof of their paradigm
Yep.
of this cosmology, and we need to be able to sift through, find where the errors and the garbage is. We need to think for ourselves. I don't care if you're a layman and you've never really looked into it. We have the internet now. There's no excuse. Any human being is able to learn these subjects, learn what the mainstream says about it, and they have every right to think differently about it. And that's what this is all about over the past 2 years. You know, that people have really been digging into alternative cosmology, researching, ancient cosmologies. We're trying to figure out what this place is because there's too many glaring problems with what they're giving us. And it's quite clear to me and you that it's just a way to reaffirm their religion of materialism. It's too obvious, at least for me. But I hope that we can shake some people's paradigms open. That's why I'm doing this. Why I'm so happy to have you on, because these, I mean, even though this is just 2 particular issues, it should be enough to make somebody think entirely differently about what they espouse, what they think is true. Because in the mainstream, Big Bang is the only thing. There's another cosmology. It's called steady state, but it's still based off of most of the premises of the Big Bang. It just has a couple different. They claim that the steady state theory or whatever takes care of the anomalous redshifts, and I looked into that a little bit this past couple weeks, and it's still dealing with the distances that most astronomers are saying. And I will say, down the road we are going to start talking about how they get their distances the methods they use to declare how far these things are away. Personally, I think it's extrapolated math. I think it's very likely that these things are very close to us, relatively close to us. Definitely not millions and millions of light years away.
No, the majority of those distances are redshifts. That's the standard.
Yeah, that's one of their major techniques.
And we already discussed the fallacy. And here we go again, the begging the question fallacy of the speed of light. We already talked about that.
Yeah.
So,
it's an interesting conundrum we've found ourselves as humans in all of this, and that's what I think this wake up is people now have access to the internet, they have access to communicate with one another, and people are dropping those authority structures, and I've said it every week, this is heresy. What you and I are doing, we would be burned at the stake, as well as all of these other astronomers and cosmologists that we've pointed out. They would be burned at the stake. It's absolutely crazy to think that we're 2017 and we're in the position that we're in with all of this garbage, quote unquote, science that exists. So, yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
So what are we going to be covering next week?
Well, I wanted to finish up one more thing.
Oh, sure. Go ahead.
Yeah, one more thing. Now listen, guys. Now, I didn't copyright this. When I put this out about 2 or 3 weeks ago, I wanted people to go ahead and take this argument and run with it. Now, I have my peoples out there monitoring, the media and seeing if this argument's popping up. I'm going to tell you, if I catch you guys out there and I don't hear this argument, right, we're going to have words. So, let's do this one more.
He's not lying. He's already hit me with that. I owe him, I think, $2 already for not bringing it up.
So listen, the Earth is not spinning. Here's the argument. Come on, guys, follow this. It's not that difficult. So, for the Coriolis effect to exist, you must have the necessary conditions for it to exist. If the Earth is spinning, then the Coriolis effect must exist. If the Coriolis effect exists, it must have these two conditions. They are necessary conditions for it to exist. So, you have to have one rotating coordinate system, that's the Earth, and one non-rotating coordinate system. That's the atmosphere. You must have those two differing coordinate systems. It's just that simple. And we read through the definition before. When set in motion, freely moving objects, including air and water masses, move in straight paths while the Earth continues to what? Rotate independently. Moving objects are not carried with the Earth as it rotates. They are subject to an apparent deflection called the Coriolis effect. Right?
Mm-hmm.
The object in question, it not physically attached to the rotating coordinate system, appears to deflect, moves independently of the rotating coordinate system. There's those two systems again. And it appears to deflect. It's apparently to deflect, or apparently deflecting, because of those two prerequisite conditions: the rotating frame and the non-rotating frame.
Mm-hmm.
That's the argument, not the Coriolis effect. The argument is the two prerequisites that make or afford the Coriolis effect to exist. So, like I said, if the Coriolis effect exists, and it has to if we're rotating, then a flight from Charlotte, North Carolina to LA nonstop, traveling at 500 miles per hour, that's the airspeed, with both locations roughly at the 35th degree north latitude, that's both allegedly spinning at 860 miles an hour, should be 1.5 hours, but it's 5.5 hours. So in my example, like I said again, we have two differing frames of reference: the Earth spinning and the atmosphere not spinning. And the plane in the atmosphere is a freely moving object. It's done. In other words, based on the law of non-contradiction, each the Coriolis effect and the Charlotte flight are either both true or both false. And it's most assuredly false. You ain't getting from Charlotte to LA in no 1.5 hours. Ain't no chance. In conclusion, the Earth is not spinning. Ergo, the ball goes by way of the dodo bird, or you're a stationary ball geocentrist. Now, if you say that no, wait a second. The atmosphere is not, it's all one system. The atmosphere is spinning with the Earth. Then how on earth can you have the Coriolis effect? Number one. Here's the next one. You're going to love this one. How do you explain west, north, or south surface winds? If the atmosphere is attached to the Earth, you cannot explain this. There would only be what type of winds? East.
Yeah.
So, in conclusion, the Coriolis effect is not my argument. I'm not saying that the flights are being apparently deflected. That's the Coriolis effect. I'm using the necessary conditions for the Coriolis effect to exist, the two differing frames of reference or coordinate systems, one rotating, the other one non-rotating, the Earth and the atmosphere.
Yeah.
So, if the supposition that the Earth is spinning and rotating is true, hence the Coriolis effect exists, then, as I said, it's logically consistent that the east to west flight time Charlotte to LA at 500 miles an hour equals 1.5 hours. Must therefore then be true. It's not. It's over. So, I have not copyrighted this. This argument it's on tape. I went through it quick, but you can go back and look through it. It cannot be refuted. It can't be.
Well, even as tight as it is and the way that you explain it, I still have seen countless individuals still not understand that, and they want it both ways. That's what I found.
Both ways.
Yeah. So it's definitely, and remember, in the beginning of On the Revolution of the Spheres by Copernicus, it said the terrestrial motion of the Earth is merely a hypothesis used to explain certain phenomenon and should not be taken as actual truth. It was put in order to explain retrogradation in Ptolemy's system. It made the system look smoother, so to speak, and you'd have to look at the two images and whatnot. So I think that, it was Copernicus that put us into motion, and you see that with that quote from Nietzsche, the parable of the madman, where he says, "Who has unchained the earth from its sun?" And Copernicus did. He's the one that put us out into all of these crazy ideas, and it's taken 500 years. And then you get an institution like NASA to literally fraud damn near everything that they do to perpetuate this particular paradigm. So it's just a matter of people figuring out. I think that's what we're trying to do here. So we'll see how they respond this time, John.
So I got my peoples out there. They're taking names.
But like I said, the elegance of this argument, it's lost on some of these guys, these mainstream, metabunk, pros who go to Rational Wiki and Metabunk to find all their answers. They don't see the elegance in what it is that you're saying. So it's a bit frustrating. But it's a damn good argument. So hopefully I don't get caught not saying it.
And just let them know they're gonna see it again. But that's it. I'm done, man. Thank you.
Oh yeah, great. Yeah, I really appreciate these things. It's I think this one, this total presentation should be enough for people to at least chip away at their paradigm. I hope that people can begin to think for themselves and not be so reliant on just this authority complex, this authority structure. Well, all of the smartest, I've even heard from one of our good friends, Jim Panda, and he says, you're telling me all of the smartest, most brilliant scientists who are paid to study and look into these subjects, you're telling me that two guys on the internet figured it out and they didn't see it.
Hey, guess what that is?
That's an argument for incredulity.
It's also another fallacy.
It is. There's several of them.
You know what it is?
What is it, John?
Argument from silence.
From silent?
Yep.
What does that mean exactly?
Argument from silence fallacy.
Well, yeah, okay, I can see that. But my larger point is the internet has changed the game. There's no questions that can't be asked at this point. And when you look at the institutions, I guarantee there are plenty of people who ask these types of questions who are just essentially silenced through the peer review system. I mean, we went over it tonight with that one gentleman, ARP, and Houghton ARP, and how his career was nearly ruined, because he discovered something that went against the modern idea. So, and I think it happens on multiple levels in the scientific institutions. A lot of people don't realize that they don't stop and think. These scientific institutions are institutions of men. There is peer review, which is essentially a couple guys getting together who believe roughly the same or similar things, who are trying to either reaffirm, mostly it's reaffirm their own paradigm. I think that's a natural human, quality. And when you seek out things to destroy paradigms, those people are usually rejected. They're the heretics. And I'm happy to call myself that nowadays. And I know you're a damn good heretic in this context.
Well, thank you.
But so what we're gonna do is we'll finish up the show. I'm actually going to be going live on Jeranism's Truth Frequency Radio in a little less than a half an hour, and so I hope everybody can go and join. You can listen to it live on their website, and I'll post the link once we're wrapping up here. But next week, let's get a quick heads up. What are we going to be going over next week, John?
We're going to talk about the sun and the alleged vacuum of space.
Oh, that's fun. That's going to be fun.
And then after that, on the docket, I think we have, we're going to go ahead and do the gravity. We're going to go ahead and do the gravity, Einstein and Newtonian. Yeah, we got to go back there.
Excellent. Yeah, and we have already covered it once in a previous episode, where actually when Jaron was on the show, he did a great presentation. But we'll do it again essentially. So we'll put together a really good presentation next, and just keep moving down the line. I mean, there's so much that has to be talked about, and people need to evaluate the paradigms.
And after that, I think we got one on irreducible complexity and functional sequence complexity.
Nice.
We'll be
digging back in.
Barn burners.
Yeah, we'll be digging back into the genetic side of things too. But that's fantastic. I'm really looking forward to it. But I'm going to go ahead and finish this up so I can get a little break time before I get the call from Jaron. So once again, I thank you so much, John. It's been awesome having you do these presentations. I'm learning a lot. I know the audience is learning a lot. And thank you for everybody supporting. We got 40 watchers right now, and we got a really good crowd. Nobody's out there trolling each other for the most part. But thank you, everybody who came and supported. And we'll be back next Monday for another presentation. Everybody have a good night. You have a good night too, John.
You also, sir. Break a leg.
Thanks, man.